All right, so episode 5 of Gladiator Diaries, we promised you the first guest of the series. There was only one person that it was ever going to be, the captain himself. Gintas, how are you doing? And what have you guys been up to this week? Did you guys watch any of the fights at the weekend?
Thank you very much. I'm doing very well. You have to adapt first to my amazing English accent, a little bit different from my son Modestas. Yeah, we've been good. Yeah, we've also been watching fights. Was amazing. Some controversial stuff as well. But yeah, we did very good.
And then we just been literally, obviously, just training hard every day. You know the deal.
We just literally finished just now training, and from plunge, cold, crazy water, we jumped straight away to speak to you.
From the cold plunge to the podcast.
Here we go.
There you go. That is the name of this episode sorted. I haven't got to think about that. So one less thing. We'll get into kind of talking a little bit more about you guys specifically, but we should touch on the UFC at the weekend with that controversial scorecard. What did you guys make of it all? Because now the good thing about doing this podcast like a good few days after the weekend is I feel like, the whole MMA world has had their period of going crazy about it and all these opinions, and so now it's kind of settled. We can kind of look forward to like, oh well, what happens now as a result? Which I mean, from the officials' standpoint, it doesn't seem like anything is going to happen, which I guess is the biggest controversial side of it all.
Yeah, go on, Dad. What do you think of the fight, Shevchenko?
Okay, no matter how I like and love Shevchenko, like lifestyle, lady speaks multiple foreign languages. So really, she's like amazing person, everything. But to me, unfortunately, she was challenger in this fight. And for me, if you are challenger, you have really take title from a champion. And I think she didn't. Because it was very close fight. If you look like neutral, yeah, looks like she won that fight. Because one judges, I don't know what he was doing, sleeping or looking on his phone or whatever. He's not watching fight clearly. If he tells 10-8, so he's a dumb guy. Sorry, he's idiot, So how I'm looking at that, 10-8 is not acceptable. So it will be 10-9, Shevchenko would win. But then if you say my personal opinion, I'm happy with that result, probably not, I think I quite happy with the result draw because Alexa Grasso, number one, dropped her. Number two, she put her in a lot of troubles. And before round 5, Shevchenko, sister, she's told, please don't make mistake. And she did it. Left 1.5 minutes. She went for this triangle arm choke. And Grasso did a simple wrestling move to her back, to her down, and put her in trouble for 1.5 minutes. However, 3.5 minutes, who was winning? Shevchenko. Yeah. So trying to be like honest, and for me, I even don't know what to say. It's really very close. So regardless result, draw, I think we need to fight again and prove who is better, because in this fight we didn't realize who is better. But like I said, Alex Grasso as champion, she did everything to protect her title, and she did it. So I don't know. Is my opinion. Even I think, like most people think, probably Shevchenko would win if it's not 10-8. But unfortunately, it was 10-8. We have very bad experience, me and Modestas. Very bad experience. When we fought Oleksiejczuk, and from all media, 20 top media places, 19 said we won. 19 we're talking, not 10-10, 19. And one said we don't know which way it is. And we still lost. At the end of the day, it's first loss. But what I'm saying is how it is.
I think judging needs to be looked at Like, you know, I think it needs to be regulated a little bit better. You know, to give a 10-8, it has to be like a complete absolute domination. You know what I mean? So obviously, even Dana White was pretty upset with that decision for that particular scorecard. So, you know, and it could have went, you know, like Dad said, a completely different way had it not been like that. But, you know, either way, it was a good fight. It was an entertaining fight, and it definitely shows the strength of the women's roster in the UFC.
Both girls are top. Really, they did amazing job. I really congratulate both of them.
Yeah, the only thing that I've seen that can, like, they've obviously asked Mike Bell, the judge, to comment and stuff, and he hasn't. But the only thing that I've seen suggested is like his viewpoint and stuff like that. Maybe from his angle, it looked like the submission in that final round was closer, and that's why he gave it. But is that something that either of you ever like put too much thought into, in terms of like it's not just about winning the fight, but winning the fight in the eyes of the judges? Because you've, like you said, you've been there where every media outlet was saying you won, and then you don't get it. So it's like, well, what are they seeing that everyone else isn't, kind of thing?
Yeah, I think it's probably determined by like I said, it's the criteria. You look at it now, they're judging it a lot more on damage, whereas before they're looking at more on forward pressure, which is, I don't know, like, to me, a fight, the one who does more damage surely should win the fight, you know? So yeah, go on, Dan.
Yeah, so yeah, for me, just I don't know how we're judging at all, you know, because sometimes we come into opinion and you think, have we been watching fight really, or we've been sitting on their phones looking something else, you know? But in this fight, yeah, I think draw is pretty fair in my eyes. I don't know why. Even like I said, you know, if you want to be champion, you have to beat the champion. She really didn't, so.
Yeah, I think they just have to make it very solid on what the judging points are going to be, and they need to put like a hierarchy of how it goes down. To me personally, in terms of judging, it should be done always on damage. So if you're sinking in a submission and getting it very close, that counts as, I guess you could say, more damage, or where they're more in trouble in the fight. You know, if you rock someone, if you drop someone. So these are all things that, you know, should definitely be taken into account a lot in terms of a fight, because just forward pressure and maybe control, you know, it doesn't even make it for an interesting fight either, if you're just going to have control, do you know what I mean, and forward pressure. So yeah.
But this fight was crazy because, like Modestas just said, Alexa Grasso dropped Shevchenko's right cross, but if you look at damage, like he said, whose face looks more damaged? Suddenly not Shevchenko's. Her face was more prettier than Alexa Grasso, because her face was pretty damaged. So I don't know. You see, it's just very weird, you know, to say.
Controversial.
Yeah, very controversial. But I think why I think his draw is okay. It was very weird. Now, what, we should fight again or we don't? Because I think they should, because you need to put closure here. I know Alexa doesn't want to fight anymore because, you know, his stuff cooking in front of her. So, you know, I think they should settle this. They should go and now someone's win properly, not by judges, 10-8 giving or whatever.
Yeah,
you have to finish.
It should be a clear win.
Yeah, like Alexa Grasso did in first fight. She showed her out, boom, just it, she's champion. So she has to do this again.
Yeah.
Or all the way around. Champion becomes champion again as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think we'll end up seeing it again. It was a great. Both the fights have been great anyway, so it's like no complaints that we get to see.
Yeah.
And it was so close, like you said, that where a draw is like the way we got to the draw is the issue. The draw itself is like, well, it was a close fight, so here there, but we'll see it again, I'm sure. So we'll talk about that more when that comes around. To talk more specifically, relevant to this episode, I suppose. Just through reading, I went back and read some really old interview. I say really old; they're probably only a couple of years old. That you did, Moddy, with mostly like national newspapers and stuff, talking about your journey into martial arts and stuff like that. To find out a little bit more about that, and of course, a lot of those articles talk about growing up with your father being a martial artist and then turning into a coach and stuff like that. But let's go back before that, because I need to know the origin story of the Bukauskas family in martial arts, because I only got a glimpse of it in those articles that I read that talks about you street fighting in the Soviet Union, and that's like the only quote about it. And I'm like, well, we need to dive into that, because that's where everything starts from, I suppose.
Yeah. Go on, Dan.
Okay, so really, myself, I turned into martial arts very late. Where Modestas opposite to me, it turned very early. Obviously, because of me, I guess. But I first started in swimming in early age, same like Modesta started in martial arts. And I spent 10 years dedicated to the swimming. But then, as you know, politicians and everything, as you know, 1980 Olympic Games was in Soviet Union at this time, or nowadays we say Russia, Moscow. And a lot of Western countries decided not to come to those Olympic Games. And then, as a child in the swimming, I was like 3 times champion of my country and was one of the candidates to go to Olympic Games to Los Angeles in 1984. So obviously they returned back, then they didn't go to Los Angeles in 1984, and a lot of champions, particularly in my eyes in freestyle wrestling, they're not real champions because they've been missing a lot of good wrestlers. And and from this point I decided I don't want to do any more swimming because politicians rule my life. I spent 10 years dedicated, achieved a lot, and was not able to go to Olympics because of politicians. So then I turned from this point a little bit to modern pentathlon, which is very different sport in the way, but same time is similar sport. It's like, you have horse show jump, you have fencing, you have swimming, you have running, and you have shooting with pistol, where I think I became a master in that one. Like my friends say, when I will go to do shooting with the pistol. But it's only for a short period I had that before I ended up going to Soviet Union Army. Where I think my martial arts journey started, I would say, between 18 years old and 20 years old. So quite late I got into that. So here I started like more, like we call now bare knuckle boxing, whatever been illegal boxing been doing, which was not allowed. And at this time was Cold War between Soviet Union and I believe West, particularly United States. And against my will, I had to go. I want or not to army, which is like really 2 years out of my life. Is like a prison.
Yeah, Dad calls it like a 2 years waste of his life, pretty much, being in the army.
It is, yeah, it's what it is, And because I passed exams and go to University of Physical Culture and Sports, or as we call here, Science of Sports. And unfortunately, this year it was 1983, 1984. You have to go, you want or not, to army. Just it because it's Cold War. So where my journey started as a fighting. So and I started pretty good. Don't want to go deep because probably we'll end up 10 hours here talking. But I did pretty good. I realized that I'm not a very good swimmer and can shoot with a pistol, but I can throw punches very well as well.
You've got a black belt in Shotokan karate, yeah?
Yeah. But this is happening after I come back from army.
Oh, okay.
So this is after it's happening. Yeah. So when I came back after army, I got very deep into martial arts, and still, unfortunately, because when I go to university, specialty was for me to choose as swimming or fencing because was no modern pentathlon or martial arts. So I chose fencing. So I have still competed to get my higher degree as a coach in fencing, which I did pretty good and achieved that. But besides that, I still was doing martial arts. And I started straight away, we can say MMA, which is people known as combat sambo, but really in Lithuania it was called like fighting without rules at this time. And I think we've been pioneers, even I would say for Russia as well, because they after started to do that. And a lot of had fights with Russian fighters. So basically Shotokan Karate, I achieved black belt, reason being why. I'm not particularly, I like a lot of concepts, but some things I don't like, but I did it for international reasons because in 80s it was internationally recognized karate, same as taekwondo and other kung fu and other martial arts. So why I got black belt in Shotokan Karate, did over 20 katas, sparrings and everything. But I still been doing beside, at this time, illegal MMA, as we call, or combat sambo, or fighting without rules. So I kind of got into wrestling, striking, and why everyone thought I'm very good boxer when I never did boxing before. Same as Modestas, he's fighting with top boxers.
It's funny because Dad sort of developed his own art, really, like from a mixture of all the different martial arts. He put it together, and it's almost like, in a way like Bruce Lee, using what is useful and discarding what's not. And a lot of the moves that Dad has taught me since young are being used now at the highest level. And a lot of moves that aren't really practiced on a sort of consistent basis, you're seeing it like being shown in MMA fights, especially like in the UFC and stuff like that. So really from the grassroots level, you could say my dad's creativity is what made him the fighter that he is, and then also what made me the fighter that I am is due to the creativity that he possesses.
Yeah, I was gonna mention this whole part of you kind of taking elements and stripping away others, because one of the articles that I read made a really big point about how you were kind of just before MMA started to become a thing that people knew about with the like early days of the UFC. But then also it said about writing a book and again, I mean, you had the perfect reference point of Bruce Lee of combining a bunch of things and making it a martial art that is actually usable if you do end up in a street fight or something like that, as opposed to traditional martial arts. Like, where did that start to come around, the whole putting those things together process?
Yeah, it's correct. And like I said, from this point, when I came back, it was still illegal to do what we've been doing. And it's funny enough, at this time, Lithuania was part of Soviet Union before we got independence, fighting for our freedom in 1990. Martial arts was illegal, and also bodybuilding, funny enough, next to martial arts, was illegal between 1983 and 1989. So we've been not allowed to do that. So we're, again, most experienced fighting in illegal fights myself. Which gave me massive experience. And a lot of people asking, so who is your coach? Who's master? My Modestas can say now me and some other coaches around, but for me, life is my coach. But my still starting point still was coach who's right now, and you taunted like a godfather in Lithuania of martial arts. He himself was black belt in karate Shotokan, and he was like massive sponsor black belt, who can say, in freestyle and Greco-Roman wrestling. So I mixed very well those things. And he was one of godfathers who tried. His name was Romas Navickas, and he put together all brands, and where MMA started in Lithuania. And he was invited a lot of Russian fighters fight with us and everything. So again, if someone asks who is your coach, I can say, yeah, it's him, but he did me beginning only first year too, and then after I learned myself by fighting and I understand what is works, what is not. And most thing what I learned from this era where I grew up, people throwing spinning hula hoop kicks, they spinning crescent kicks, jumping, flying kicks, everything. punches, everything. And then I learned I only had right hand and start to beat top guys who had names in my country. And may think, how the hell this guy can do? Just because I was athletic, and I realized, you see, you don't need to be so, nice like for the movies, can throw anything you want, but can one right hand can finish the fight.
It's about effectiveness, It's about being effective and landing the most devastating strikes, which is why Dad emphasizes whenever we're training to land the most efficient and, the most devastating strike, as opposed to, trying to go too flashy. Like, we'll only use it if it's going to be effective.
We just had fight, isn't it? Israel Adesanya and Sean Strickland.
Yeah.
It just shows.
You can throw all the crazy, flamboyant stuff, but then you've got a guy who's got, good defense with a shoulder roll and a good jab and a cross, and the next thing you know, he's beating that kind of guy,
How similar would you say, like, your fighting styles are? Like, obviously, I've watched one of you fight a bunch of times and never watched one of you fight, mostly because they were illegal fights that I would never, they weren't filmed. So I have no idea. But, like, I'm sure there are, little subtleties that change over time, and MMA is always changing and evolving ever so slightly. So I'm sure there are little differences, but, like, how similar overall would you say?
I think Dad would be the best one to answer this question.
Okay, I would say it's big differences now. Massive. Because old days when I fought, those illegal fights was very close to a street fight. And street fight from nowadays fight is completely different. You can see some street fight king killing everybody in the street, comes in octagon, are gonna be smashed maybe inside 1 minute or even less. Because the street is different fight. The street guy mad and wants to take head from you. And if you're a good fighter, you're ready for this. He goes crazy at you. If you know how to sleep, how to move to the side, boom, he's done. So it's different. People been very aggressive, very crazy. So street fight from nowadays, MMA fighting is completely different. Now it's tactics, it's psychology, and everything is involved, how people think, and techniques. People think, oh, this guy will throwing punch and really kick. And they delusional if think this guy can't throw spinning heel hook kick or anything else. He's just not throwing this because he don't want to be taken down by doing that or getting knocked out by some counter simple punch, So it's different nowadays how it was old days. So why I'm never say, oh, you see, my days was tough, people knockouts and everything. Yeah, I had a lot of knockouts, knocked out people, but maybe because they rushing to kill me and I just moved to the side and boom. And nowadays they just doing feints, and this is completely different. You can't compare this era with nowadays era. Or UFC. Look, UFC came much later than I was fighting, already doing what they did in 1993 in November. His first UFC fight was. And if you see first UFC fights compared nowadays, come on, it's completely different. So you think those heroes who been then, if now we go fight heroes who is now, unfortunately, all heroes would lose. I just have to be honest, because it's different fight. It's sport now.
Yeah, I think
it's not fight.
I think Dad does a good job of trying to blend the old school with the new school, because obviously I'm learning all these different techniques which are now being sort of utilized in the modern era. Guys catching on with certain wrestling techniques, certain jiu-jitsu techniques now that the game has evolved so massively since back in the day. But the point is obviously to try and mesh the two together, because the old stuff does work in the new as well as the new stuff working now. Do you know what I mean? You have to be able to kind of universally use all of that. So that in terms of my training, that's what Dad tries to emphasize. So I guess in a way, the best way to describe the difference between me and Dad is that I'm just sort of added in certain things from the modern era on top of what Dad has learned. But Dad's big emphasis is to make sure that we don't forget about the old stuff. We sort of blend everything together, and that way you can adapt the best to any opponent.
So well said. Exactly how it is. And the best example, New Year's Eve in Cage Warriors, becoming Cage Warriors champion, right hand, boom. I told you can knock out everybody because you have to be right time and person not ready. And he even touched me. He didn't tried to throw the most powerful punch, and guy was sleeping, dead. So here we go. But for me, it was very nice to see. I was so happy because I put so many people in such position, and now I see my son did it eventually.
I know, the whole time my dad was saying, "Come on, Modestas, why do you not knock out anyone out with your hands? Like, we've been training for all these years, you can't just do it once." So now I can say that has been ticked. That box has been ticked.
Now it's done. It's history. Now
we have to make more. We have to make more now.
Just so competitive now, particularly in your level is so high that people, some of the CC fights can be knockout, can be this, but it's just level is different. People don't understand, and people feel, oh, I can do it. So many guys say, I can do it. Comes, they even one training does and never comes back. You know why? You realize what it is to train as UFC fighter.
Yeah, this actually leads really perfectly onto something that I'm surprised through 4.5 episodes that we haven't touched on yet, but this feels like the right time to do it, especially after talking about that Chuck Campbell knockout, which was a beautiful shot. I'm curious, I want to get both of you guys' opinions on this. I don't know if it's something you've ever spoken about and whether you're going to have the same one, but what do you think is Moddy's best performance so far?
My best performance? I think that says to this day, probably Tyson Pedro.
No, 100% Tyson Pedro, because this guy so skillful, so good. No matter he has some illness, whatever, which is, he's an amazing person, and he was very good after fight. He respected, and even what I like about Tyson Pedro, when they said that Modestas won, he put his head down and he agreed with that he lost. Not many guys do it, so popular guys like him. He's amazing. But at the same time, me annoying now, but we telling, oh, this another. I can bring forward as well things. What about us? Short notice. Arrived to Australia, not straight flight. Why straight flight was back home? Why was forward not straight flight? Why we have to go to Malaysia, from Malaysia to Australia, and end up on Wednesday here, and on weekend having a fight? So we clearly be not right for a fight. Already, you can say that, and we'll be not right. And Modestas has hay fever, so we not bring those things, and we never do. And whenever other fights we lost, people has no idea what is behind. Particularly in Khalil Roundtree fight, I'm not gonna say anything. I'm not gonna bring. We didn't then, and I'm not gonna bring this now. But we had a lot of problems. But we didn't bring that. Loss is law. Just said, if you step in octagon, regardless what happened the day before, don't bring this, because if you have problems, don't fight them. No. Yeah, he's now trying excuse because he agreed last second and came in and fight. So I decide do for him as well favor. I'm gonna fight him and I'm not right. No, don't fight. We don't care. No problems. We can arrange in London. You can arrive on Wednesday and fight us on Saturday. We'll see what happens.
So look, that fight in particular, I think, just an overall. Like my speed, like I remember actually watching it with Will as well, and we both said, like, if you compare it to the Palga fight and that fight, and if you look at all my performances in general, like I think my hand speed was like the best, my shot selection was the best, my movement was the best. So realistically,
confidence the best.
Yeah, confidence was the best. So I mean, like I say, I was in enemy territory. I don't know. I think it's a bit like, and I'm sorry to bring this up again, but like Take Me Out, right? That whole experience for me was like honestly, to go and do that, like you got to be some sort of like crazy up here. Do you know what I mean? Like to go out in front, but that was one of the most nerve-wracking things I've ever done. It's almost like the same like going to Australia. It's like now from those experiences, it kind of makes you embrace the fearful, embrace the scary, and it's like when I'm going out into that crowd and everyone's booing me. I don't know. It kind of spurred me on a little bit, and I don't know. Listen, I ain't gonna lie. I'm a bit of an attention seeker. I do like people to notice stuff, and I guess kind of with a big arena and all eyes on you, you got a massive crowd. It spurred me on even more because I'm like, this is exactly what I want, and so that's why to this day I think that's my best performance. But then obviously November 4th, we're gonna go out and get in that fight the best performance. To this day, and this time we're gonna go for the heavy shots, mate.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. I was going to say if you didn't. So, another one of the things that I read whilst reading through some old articles was about, of course, Will joining the team and how that's been. But also, one of the things that it spoke about was how the fight that the time that everyone in the MMA world seemed to realize who Will was when he was barking orders, and everyone was like, "Who is this guy in the corner that is screaming his head off?" And all of us UK fans were like, "Oh, we know who that is." It said about how he in that fight was kind of like a speakerphone for the corner instructions. Like, how has that been in terms of adding Will into the team, but also not only as a training partner and someone to go through this process with, but also someone who you can put that knowledge onto, like, again, going back to that, taking things that you don't need and just keeping it like the efficient martial arts skills that you need, translating that to another person, and then having them like be able to do it themselves and translate that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So Will is our very good friend, first of all. So he's in this fight particularly, as you said, he put all his heart, and he's always had want Modestas to win, and it was very emotional, and he just was always had want his friend to win. And might I made a mistake? I don't know why. I said, yeah, let's put microphone on Will. Mine will be a little bit different story if they put microphone on me, because you can hear Will, not hear much what I'm saying, you know. So yeah, we put on Will, and it worked out very well. I think all commentators, Michael Bisping and John Anik, they like it, you know. So I think we did the right decision. However, in the next fight, I put microphone myself, so why did he have so much Will, I guess, against Power. But I mean, everything in Australia went perfect. We just been very one unit. Is very good, our friend, and everything he said correct. It was no mistakes what he said. Exactly what he said. Show to see who the hell you are in last fight. So it's regardless, I say or him, you know. And other things we still change. And I just ask things I need to know. I said what I need to have to say, and everything Will said in this particular fight. This was everything's right. He was shouting. He's doing everything correct. So
yeah, and you know, like obviously it's hard for someone to, you know, come into our system of training and learn how to do everything sort of the way that we're doing it, especially because I'd like to say we're very against the grain when it comes to, you know, the normalities of MMA and what people do in terms of their training. But the good thing about Will is that he kind of enjoys the, you know, how sort of different and dynamic the things that we do are, that they're not normal. Like, you know, I think he sort of is a guy that embraces the challenging and the you know, not you know, the unconventional stuff, which is what me and Dad do. So you know, he sees what my dad puts me through, and then you know, for him to do it himself, I mean, he can see how hard we train. He often says how hard it is that we train. So
look what he said of his last fight. Remember what he said about his last fight?
Yeah.
he says, I'm torture buff, but is how it has to be if you want to be the best and beat the best.
Yeah, it's good that he, you know, as much as being a good friend and everything, and like I said, it all happened really kind of after that Khalil fight. We just kind of got closer, and we needed a training partner to do all of our drills, because one thing that Dad was saying to me was that we're missing certain drills and techniques and patterns that, you know, that you need another body to do. You can't, you know, obviously Dad can hold pads all day long, but to do the movements and stuff like that, you know, you need someone that's obviously going to be able to like move around with the same speed and stuff like this, even though Dad's bloody very fast himself. But, you know.
But I guess when you're approaching your 60s, you're not the same as you're 25 or 30 or 35 even. So, yeah, your body is not the same. Everything, you feel too good, yeah, from outside. But really, I can't do this. I will be dead if I do all
People don't know as well that Dad, a lot of times, he'll say his back's hurting or his knees are hurting. Like he'll trip or something, and then he would still keep going with the pads with like same intensity and ferocity. So it's one of the things that I'm like obviously extremely grateful for, and it's very good that yeah, like I say, that Will can join us on the journey as well. He does find it very difficult, but at the same time, there's no, when we are training, there's no complaints, and he enjoys it. And I think Australia was definitely one of the trips where our team spirit sort of elevated. The bonding between us as a team and like a very family unit is what made us so strong out there. I think people could see it kind of shine off of us, like the vibrancy of the team. You know what I mean? Like the jokes between us, like the kind of then getting serious and getting to the job. The whole thing, it's been a great addition to have him with us, because he likes to be against the grain himself. So adding that to our team, we're all a bunch of nutters. So that's I guess you've got to just keep those people together,
Yeah, it must be super interesting from your perspective to get to watch somebody else try and take the training that you're accustomed to on and see how they deal with it. Because I remember, like, right in Will's first couple of Cage Warriors fights, it was always the guy is a crazy good athlete. All it needs is he just has to learn the skills and techniques and get experience, and it's like sky's the limit. So to be able to watch Will, who, like you said, is one of those people that's willing to just dive in and be molded into what people want, it must be really interesting to see kind of how you learned that system, but from like a different perspective.
Yeah. I think for because obviously a lot of people are sort of set in their ways with how they are, and it's very hard to break certain habits and stuff like that. But I think my dad's done a good job of sort of just saying it how it is and just being real and just teaching it the way that he sees it. And it's good because obviously Will really respects Dad as everyone does, just because of all the years of experience and stuff like this. So it's like, even though Dad's shouting at us and telling us it needs to be better and this and that, it's all obviously coming from a very good place. And Dad, what do you think obviously about Will in training and stuff like that, like how he's taking on our training?
No, he's a very unique person, and I guess not a lot of coaches can be with him everything. But point is, we had amazing bond, like you said, in Australia. We first of all were friends, and Modestas and Will, so different people, absolutely different, but same time this is so good friends. So I think this is energy is amazing, between all of us, and he so nice with me. Even after his last fight, what he said, just crazy, He said, like, you're my second dad and everything, gives me kiss and everything's crazy. Even his behavior is weird, It's like crazy, how he behaves and tells things. I just open my mouth, I can't say anything. It's Will. So you can't change him. I think he's never changed him. And I just hope he excels and, sticks and be disciplined and everything, and hopefully gets where he has to be. I mean, in UFC, and but he's a unique person. I guess not everyone can be around him, but we stick together. We just find whatever it is,
And it's funny because when he does the stuff that, that Dad says, you can see it. Like, there was a lot of people actually that said after, I believe it was his last fight, how his striking had improved. I don't know if you had noticed it yourself. I mean, even though it was a potential, more or less a grappling fight, but from the striking aspect, a lot of the things he tried to incorporate, obviously things like that, it's still, things take time to obviously to really kind of delve into and really start using it. But I think for the most part, he started using it more and more, and hopefully we'll be able to see that as time goes on.
Yeah, for sure.
It's difficult to cut some habits as well. It takes time, like Modesta said. So we'll see what future brings to us.
Yeah.
All.
Yeah, exciting times. I'm excited to. I'm sure will be on very shortly, so we will dive into all of that stuff.
Probably be probably the next guest, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, it would make sense. Because I don't know whether we're gonna have you both on together before the fight. Maybe really
We can
close
do
to
it
the
again.
fight, something like that. But I would be fascinated to not without, I'm not saying give let me tell me what the game plan is for Petrino. I don't want to know that. But in terms of I've got a glimpse just through chatting about the fight very briefly with you, Moddy, about your thoughts on Petrino. But I suppose we've still got what is it, about a month? Yeah,
Yeah,
just over a month,
6 weeks from Saturday.
Yeah. Like, give me your take on Petrino, what you've seen of him, the things he does well, the things he doesn't do so well, and how you see the fight going now that we're 6 weeks out. And then maybe, if we end up speaking 2 weeks before the fight, we'll get like a more current update, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I know on say obviously what is our plan to do to him. You're gonna see on the 4th of November. But coming to this guy, he's a very serious opponent. Number one is young, and when you're young, you reckless, and when person has nothing to lose is most dangerous. Is really, you can see, very powerful, very explosive, and yeah, really very dangerous, because he, in some fights in UFC, he got in like very bad positions. He got out from them because he's so strong and explosive. And yeah, it seems he has good chin, and it looks very powerful and looks very big for his weight class, as commentators already talk, like Daniel Cormier and John Anik, and yeah, they think that, and Joe Rogan, I think, commented this fight. So yeah, I still think is very good and is young, and in some ways maybe a little bit delusional. He thinks he's unbeatable. He's still unbeaten. He never lost yet, which is coming soon. And is very good. Same time, we can't much to put game plan. We learn in our past. Whenever Modestas fought particularly high opposition, they never fought the same fights as we fought in last 2 or 3 fights. They came like animals prepared. I think people just scared because Modestas is very technical, and we need brutality a little bit to bring now. Start, because we realize when you're so technical, people can see your punches hitting opponent's chin. When you fought Pauga, and that Pauga, and if you look and repeats, in the fight, you didn't see how Modestas landed crazy punch, but then repeats they show his head was flying all over the place. So people just can't see because he's so fast and technical. So in this fight, again, we can't much put any game plan. I just know 2 things what guy gonna do to us, and I know I'm right, because he's either goes as in the street crazy. Oh, I think you look, Khalil Round Jr. put pressure and gonna do the same. Either this he's gonna do, he goes crazy on us. I just say, I'm not gonna say what we do. I'm just gonna say good luck. And another thing is, coach maybe thinks, why Modestas is beating top strikers? I mean, in striking department, nobody ever goes to wrestling eventually, including Tyson Pedro. And even Zach Power did pretty good, but didn't work wrestling. Why need to strike, and why it was very interesting fight. But we proved the point. We beat him, And in this fight, I think he might go for wrestling. Again, what I can say, good luck. Number one, I'm not sure if he can even take down Modestas. Never say never. If he will, if from a back just fine, you can stand up, you can submit you can put some elbows in your head. So this is what I'm seeing in this fight. So 2 variations from him, because he's very young, very popular, and is very cocky, but he's very good person for UFC, and they like that, And I think we're gonna change. We like Modestas even more after that fight.
We're going into enemy territory, and with that being said, let's not beat around the bush here. We're going out there to take it from him.
To fight.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? We're going out there to spear his head and present that to his people. When you go into enemy territory like that, especially in the hometown where everyone's going to be cheering for him and completely booing me, that's where we're going to bring the real intensity and ferocity, and that's where it has to come out. Because you give him that, if you give him an inch, he'll take a mile, especially in his hometown. You know, especially with the first event, I think, in Brazil for quite a while, or I think in Sao Paulo probably for quite a while. I think it's the second time in that arena. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah. So obviously, and it's, from what I've seen, it's like a dome, so it's like everything's going to be echoing and like very loud, and you know, and of course, like, you know, like Dad said, is, you know, very young, athletic guy. You know, people are going to want him to win. You know, he's almost like the, you know, the pretty boy kind of style. But then that's where we got to take it to him. That's literally where you take no step backwards. You got to go and fight. So that's what we're going to go and bring.
Yeah, summed it up. Like I said, we'll do like a more recent, up to date version of that a little bit closer to the fight and stuff. Once we're a little bit more into the camp and stuff like that. But I think that's about it. So appreciate you both. Appreciate your time, and I will catch you.
Yeah,
The big boss.
It was good to do this, and I'll catch you next week. Moddy probably joined by Will Curry.
Yeah,
we'll try and make that happen.
We're probably going to bring Will in for the next one. So, yeah, man. Thank you very much, Dad, obviously, for coming and jumping on the show with us.
And nice to speak to you as well.
Yes, good to finally do this. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Many more incoming. We've got so many more things to talk about, you know.